The story opens on a calm, late afternoon in a small, picturesque town. The male narrator, 25, notices the familiar house across the street. The home of the widow, a woman in her early 40s, whose presence has quietly intrigued him for weeks. She is seated on the front porch, a book in her hand, though her gaze often drifts toward the street, as if anticipating something unseen. Her posture is relaxed yet carries the subtle weight of solitude. Shoulders slightly rounded, hands folding the book into her lap, a soft sigh escaping her lips. The moment is still, almost suspended in the gentle glow of the setting sun. The narrator observes the widow not as an object of desire, but with a keen curiosity, noticing the graceful lines of her face, the way her hair catches the light, and the quiet dignity in her movements. The air is scented faintly with flowers from her garden, mingling with the earthy smell of the freshly turned soil. These details are small, almost imperceptible, yet they anchor the scene in sensory reality. Then her sister arrives. She is a lively, slightly younger woman, carrying an aura of warmth that contrasts with the widow's quiet melancholy. When the sister steps onto the porch and slides into the bench beside the widow, there is a subtle but noticeable shift. The widow's lips lift into a genuine, unguarded smile. It's the kind of smile that reaches her eyes and softens the delicate tension in her face. The narrator notices the brief brush of their shoulders as they settle beside each other, a simple touch that radiates comfort and familiarity. Emotionally, this moment establishes several layers. The widow's restrained loneliness, her sister's grounding presence, and the narrator's external perspective of silent fascination. The slow-burn tension begins here. It's not a romantic spark yet, but a gentle curiosity, the kind that makes the narrator pause and reflect on human connection, age, and experience. The key sensory elements, the warmth of the sun, the scent of flowers, the tactile brush of shoulders, the sound of pages turning, the rustle of leaves, create a grounded intimacy. The narrator's internal monologue may explore the quiet admiration for her grace, the unspoken recognition of past sorrow, and the subtle intrigue of observing someone from a distance, hinting at an age gap attraction without overtly stating it. Narrative guidance for the script. Focus on showing rather than telling. Long lingering shots of the widow and her sister sitting together, the play of light on their hair, their gestures, and small shared smiles. Intercut with the narrator's observations, small but emotionally rich details, to build empathy and emotional connection. This is the audience's entry point into the story. The world feels alive, the characters fully human, and the tension slow yet palpable. Emotional goal: establish curiosity, quiet admiration, and the warmth of a family bond. Allow the audience to feel the beginning of emotional intimacy through observation and subtle gestures rather than dialogue. The afternoon stretches into early evening, the sunlight softening into a golden haze that spills across the widow's garden. The male narrator finds himself walking past her house, a casual errand giving him the excuse to linger near the familiar scene. He isn't sure why he does this, part curiosity, part an unacknowledged draw toward someone whose presence feels quietly magnetic. There is a subtle tension in the air, the kind that comes when distance and proximity mingle, hinting at emotions that haven't yet been named. The widow is tending to her small flower beds, her hands moving deliberately through the soil, brushing petals aside, planting with careful precision. Her movements are graceful but practical, and the narrator notices how her sleeves are rolled up slightly, revealing toned forearms that suggest strength hidden beneath elegance. Her sister, still perched on the porch, watches with a soft, teasing smile, occasionally offering advice or a playful comment, their voices blending in a way that feels intimate yet unspoken. The narrator steps closer, ostensibly to admire the flowers, but his eyes inevitably find her face. She looks up, and for the first time, their eyes meet. There is a brief pause, just a heartbeat, and in that fraction of a second, the widow registers him as more than a passing observer. There's no overt greeting, just a small, almost imperceptible nod, accompanied by a fleeting, polite smile. Yet in that smile, the narrator senses layers of warmth, curiosity, and a subtle hesitation, as though she is weighing whether to open herself to another presence. The physical details anchor the emotional tension. The widow brushes a stray lock of hair from her face, her fingers lingering at the nape of her neck. The sister shifts slightly, leaving just enough space for the narrator's observation to feel intimate without intrusion. The air carries the scent of fresh earth and the faint perfume of flowers, mingling with the quiet hum of distant traffic and birdsong. Each sensory note deepens the audience's connection, making them feel as though they are standing there, witnessing a delicate, unspoken dance of attention and restraint. Narratively, this scene continues to build the slow-burn tension. The widow is subtly aware of his presence, yet her attention remains split between her sister and the task at hand. The male narrator, meanwhile, feels a quiet fascination, not a rush of desire, but the soft pull of emotional curiosity, a respect for her grace and her quiet strength. Their connection is framed in observation and subtle gestures, not words, emphasizing the emotional depth that will grow over time. For the script, focus on lingering camera angles. The slight tilt of her head, the way sunlight caresses her cheek, the sister's encouraging but unobtrusive glances. Use sound design to highlight intimacy. Soft rustling of leaves, faint footsteps, the gentle scrape of a trowel in soil. These details make the moment immersive, heightening tension without dialogue. Emotional goal: deepen curiosity, hint at silent attraction, and allow the audience to feel the quiet electricity of proximity. Show emotional stakes through subtle glances, gentle gestures, and the narrator's reflective, observant perspective. The sun has begun its descent, casting a warm, amber glow over the quiet street. The narrator finds himself lingering once more outside the widow's house, drawn not by chance, but by a gentle curiosity that has settled in his chest. Today, something feels different. Her sister has left, and the widow is seated alone on the porch, a teacup cradled between her hands. Steam rises slowly into the evening air, curling faintly toward the fading light. The scene is intimate without being intrusive, and the narrator senses an opportunity for a conversation, a real exchange, however brief. As he approaches, the widow glances up, her eyes meeting his with a measured curiosity. There's no awkwardness in her gaze, only a quiet acknowledgement, as if she recognizes him as someone who observes carefully, without judgment. He greets her softly, his voice steady yet tinged with nervousness. The subtle tension of first spoken words after days of silent admiration. She responds with a nod and a small, polite smile, her fingers tightening slightly around the cup, betraying a quiet alertness beneath her composed exterior. They begin talking about mundane things at first: the weather, the changing seasons, the little intricacies of her garden. But in these seemingly ordinary exchanges, the narrator senses layers of personality, moments of humor, and glimpses of vulnerability. She laughs softly at a teasing comment he makes, the sound light and unexpected, and he notices how her eyes crinkle at the corners, the kind of detail that lingers in memory. Her hand brushes the edge of the teacup as she gestures, fingers momentarily grazing the rim, a tactile reminder of her presence. The narrator, in turn, finds himself subtly leaning closer, careful to respect her space, yet drawn to the quiet warmth she radiates. The emotional tension builds gently here. There's no rush, no overt confession, just the slow recognition of mutual comfort and intrigue. The widow shifts slightly on the bench, the movement deliberate, as though she is navigating both her curiosity and the caution that comes from past experience. Her posture is relaxed but guarded. Her gaze occasionally flicks to the horizon, hinting at internal reflection. Meanwhile, the narrator's heart beats with quiet anticipation, aware that every gesture, every pause, carries more weight than mere politeness. For the script, emphasize sensory-rich details. The warmth of the teacup in her hands, the soft rustle of her dress as she moves, the golden light playing across her hair, the subtle fragrance of her perfume mingling with the earthy scent of the garden. Let lingering camera angles capture these moments, close-ups of hands, eyes, and smiles, creating a sense of intimacy for the audience without verbal exposition. Sound design should highlight the soft ambience, distant birds, the faint clink of the teacup, and the gentle sigh of wind through leaves. Emotional goal: deepen the slow-burn tension, highlight mutual curiosity and comfort, and let the audience feel the quiet intimacy of a connection forming. Every gesture, glance, and pause should convey subtle emotional stakes, emphasizing that this bond is built on observation, understanding, and shared presence. Evening has settled fully now, draping the street in shades of violet and deep indigo. The air carries the soft chill of approaching night, mixed with the lingering warmth of the day. The narrator finds himself once again outside the widow's house, drawn more by quiet fascination than conscious intention. Tonight, there is no sister, no distraction, just the two of them in the soft glow of porch lights. The widow moves gracefully, carrying a small tray with 2 glasses of water. She sets one down near him, a gesture so simple yet filled with understated generosity, that the narrator can't help but notice the slight tremor in her hand. Perhaps nerves, perhaps the echo of her solitude. Their conversation begins casually but naturally, meandering from books and music to childhood memories and small-town stories. With each word, the narrator observes subtle details. The way her eyes light up when she recalls a fond memory, the gentle curve of her smile, and the rhythmic movements of her fingers as she gestures. These nuances are delicate, almost imperceptible, but they draw him in, compelling him to pay closer attention. There is a slow intimacy forming here, one built on observation, trust, and shared silence as much as on words. The first meaningful physical connection happens almost by accident. As he reaches for his glass, their hands brush lightly. It's a fleeting contact, nothing deliberate, yet enough to send a quiet ripple of awareness through both of them. Her hand lingers just a fraction longer than necessary on the rim of the glass, and he notices the faint warmth, the soft texture of her skin. They exchange a glance, subtle but loaded, and for a moment, the conversation pauses. Neither speaks, yet the air between them feels charged with an unspoken understanding. The narrator is aware of the slow thrum of his heartbeat, the intimate realization that physical closeness, even the smallest touch, carries emotional weight. The sensory details are crucial here. The faint scent of her perfume mixes with the evening air, and the soft hum of cicadas provides a gentle background. The porch light casts warm shadows across their faces, highlighting the subtle blush in her cheeks and the glimmer in her eyes. The narrator notices the quiet elegance of her posture, the careful yet relaxed way she sits, and the almost imperceptible gestures that communicate both grace and vulnerability. These elements make the audience feel present in the moment, experiencing the subtle tension and warmth alongside him. For the script, focus on lingering camera work that captures these small but meaningful gestures. The brushing of hands, the fleeting glances, the soft movements of her fingers, and the play of light on her face. Sound design should enhance intimacy. The quiet clink of glasses, the distant chirp of evening birds, and the soft rustle of clothing as they shift. Dialogue should remain gentle and natural, allowing pauses and silences to communicate unspoken feelings. Emotional goal. This is the moment where physical and emotional proximity begins to intertwine. The audience should feel the first hint of romantic tension, subtle, respectful, and deeply human, while appreciating the beauty of small gestures and the warmth of quiet connection. The evening has deepened into night, and the street outside the widow's house is quiet, wrapped in the soft hum of distant lights and the gentle rustle of trees in the breeze. The male narrator, standing at the edge of her porch, senses a shift in the atmosphere. Tonight, she seems different, more open, yet quietly hesitant, as if the solitude she has long carried is being challenged by the warmth of his attention. The sister has long gone, leaving them in a private, almost sacred space that encourages honesty and introspection. Their conversation turns unexpectedly personal. She talks about her late husband, carefully threading her words to avoid pain but revealing enough for him to feel the weight of her loss. The narrator listens intently, aware that silence is often as important as speech. Each pause, each soft exhale, speaks volumes. Her voice is calm but carries a subtle tremor, and he notices the way her hands clutch the edge of her chair, fingertips pressing lightly into the wood. There is a fragile honesty in these gestures, a quiet surrender of the walls she's built around herself. For the narrator, this is a moment of emotional intimacy that deepens his feelings beyond curiosity. He feels an urge to reach out, to offer comfort without intrusion, and when their hands brush again, this time in a more deliberate, reassuring way, the contact is lingering. She allows it, her fingers resting lightly against his for a heartbeat longer than necessary. The narrator senses the warmth, the subtle pulse of her life against his own, and the silent communication that passes between them. It is gentle, respectful, and profoundly human. The sensory details anchor the emotional tension. The faint scent of her floral perfume mingles with the night air, the cool breeze brushes past their faces, and the soft glow of a porch lamp highlights the glimmer of moisture in her eyes. The narrator notices the subtle play of shadows across her face, and the slight tilt of her head when she laughs quietly at a memory. These details deepen the audience's immersion, creating a sense that they are witnessing not just a conversation, but a delicate unfolding of trust and vulnerability. The scene is paced deliberately. Long pauses punctuate the dialogue, giving weight to each word. Small gestures, the shifting of her shoulders, the crossing of her legs, the slight incline of her body toward him, convey volumes of unspoken meaning. The emotional stakes are clear. This is the moment where connection moves from polite curiosity to genuine closeness, where two people feel the quiet pull of mutual understanding, tempered by caution and life experience. For the script, emphasize intimacy through camera work, close-ups of eyes, hands, and subtle facial expressions. Sound design should remain minimal but present. The faint clink of a cup, soft wind through leaves, distant night sounds, creating a sense of private space. Dialogue should be measured, allowing pauses and reflective silences to communicate depth of emotion. Emotional goal: show the widow's vulnerability and the narrator's respectful responsiveness, building a deep emotional connection. This is the turning point where trust begins to flourish, and subtle romantic tension intertwines with sincere human empathy, setting the stage for a slow-burn progression that feels authentic and heartfelt. Night has fully embraced the town, and the quiet street is bathed in the soft glow of scattered lamps, their light reflecting off the widow's porch. The male narrator lingers near the edge, aware that the connection between them has deepened beyond polite conversation and gentle curiosity. Tonight, the air itself seems charged with unspoken words, subtle longing, and the weight of emotions that neither is ready to name aloud. They talk less now, allowing silences to carry meaning. Every glance, every shift in posture feels amplified. The widow leans slightly forward to reach for a small lantern on the table, and the narrator instinctively moves closer, not intentionally, yet guided by an unspoken pull. Their shoulders brush briefly, the contact light but lingering long enough to create a shared warmth that neither acknowledges verbally. He notices the way her fingers twitch slightly, betraying awareness of the closeness, and how her eyes flick to his, holding his gaze just a second longer than necessary. It is a quiet dance of restraint and desire, built entirely on observation and subtle physical cues. The emotional tension peaks during a conversation about vulnerability and loneliness. She speaks of fleeting regrets and small, personal disappointments, her voice low and soft, almost confessional. The narrator responds not with advice but with empathetic attentiveness, his presence alone a comfort. At one point, he extends a hand lightly to tuck a stray lock of hair behind her ear, a gesture that is intimate yet entirely respectful. She allows it, leaning subtly into the touch, the movement so slight that it might be missed if not observed carefully. This fleeting contact, combined with their steady eye contact, conveys an undercurrent of romantic desire without words or explicit actions. Sensory details heighten the audience's immersion. The scent of evening air mixed with her faint perfume lingers. The soft flicker of lantern light creates dancing shadows on her face. The gentle brush of clothing and the warmth radiating from their brief touches is palpable. The narrator's internal monologue captures the quiet thrill of these moments. The magnetic pull of her presence, the subtle tension of proximity, and the emotional intimacy blooming between them. Every detail, the tilt of her head, the curve of her lips, the softness in her voice, reinforces the slow-burn romance and deepens the connection. For the script, visual storytelling is crucial. Use close-ups to capture lingering touches, subtle glances, and the quiet interplay of expressions. Allow long, reflective pauses in dialogue so that the audience can feel the tension themselves. Sound design should emphasize intimacy. Soft wind through the trees, distant nighttime sounds, and the faint, rhythmic pulse of their shared breaths. Every gesture should communicate longing restrained by caution, deepening the emotional stakes. Emotional goal: heighten the romantic tension to its peak without crossing into overt affection. The audience should feel the magnetic pull between the widow and narrator, the quiet desire that exists in pauses, glances, and gentle touches, and the emotional vulnerability that makes the slow-burn progression authentic and compelling. This sets the stage for a warm, satisfying resolution in the final part. The night has deepened, and the quiet street outside the widow's house is wrapped in a serene stillness. The air carries the faint scent of blooming night flowers, mingling with the subtle warmth of the porch light that bathes the two of them in a soft glow. Tonight, everything feels deliberate yet natural. The lingering tension of previous nights has softened into an intimate ease, a shared understanding that words alone could not convey. The narrator finally steps fully onto the porch, closing the small distance that had been marked by hesitant glances and fleeting touches for days. She meets his gaze, and for the first time, there is no hesitation, only the quiet acknowledgement of connection. The tension of the previous evenings has not vanished, but it has transformed into something tender and grounding. He notices the small, human details that make her presence comforting. The gentle curve of her shoulders, the subtle movement of her hands as she adjusts her shawl, the warmth radiating from her when she smiles genuinely. Their conversation is soft and reflective. They talk about life's uncertainties, the quiet joys of simple routines, and the beauty of unexpected companionship. Each word carries weight, but more importantly, it's the silences that speak. Long pauses filled with mutual respect, the comfort of shared understanding, and the gentle rhythm of hearts slowly opening to each other. In one deliberate, yet understated gesture, he reaches for her hand. She allows it, her fingers curling lightly around his in a slow, measured acknowledgement. The touch is soft, familiar, and profoundly reassuring, a physical echo of the trust and connection they have nurtured. The sensory details enrich the scene. The night air is cool, brushing against their cheeks and mingling with the subtle warmth of their intertwined hands. The distant hum of the town feels muted, allowing their shared space to feel intimate and safe. The glow of the porch light plays across her face, highlighting the serene contentment in her eyes, the soft smile that reflects both relief and quiet joy. The faint scent of her perfume, mingled with the earthy aroma of the garden, adds a layer of grounding realism, making the audience feel fully present in the moment. For the script, visual storytelling should emphasize lingering, meaningful gestures. The intertwining of fingers, the soft brush of hands, the brief leaning of shoulders together, and the gentle exchanges of glances. Sound design should remain subtle yet immersive. The soft chirp of nocturnal insects, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the faint creak of the porch under shifting weight. Dialogue should be minimal but heartfelt, with emphasis on pauses and reflective tones that allow emotional intimacy to resonate naturally. Emotional goal: bring the slow-burn romance to a satisfying conclusion, showing that connection, trust, and emotional intimacy can be deeply fulfilling without overt dramatics. The widow and narrator share warmth, subtle affection, and mutual understanding, leaving the audience with a sense of completeness, emotional resonance, and the comforting realization that true intimacy can grow gradually, respectfully, and profoundly.